If I go against everything I stand for, will it be enough?
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I reward a lot of your patience out there, so thank you so much for waiting around as we finally got to it. That's right, we're talking about the People's Spider-Man, Spider-Man Web of Shadows for the Xbox 360. If there was any game that has been more requested to be talked about here on this channel, it was 100,000% without a doubt Web of Shadows. We've talked about a ton of Spider-Man games. We still have a long list of Spider-Man games to go through on this channel, so stay tuned for more. But this one, by far, was the most requested one since we dropped our first Raimi Spider-Man video game video. So thank you so much for being patient, waiting around. We had to wait for just the right deal. I got this one for 60 buckaroos complete in box, and the copy is absolutely beautiful. That's about where the market's sitting at for this game. Since No Way Home came out, a lot of Spider-Man games went up in value. They were sitting around 90 bucks a pop, and then they finally declined a little bit, and now they're stabilizing around the $60 area, which is still a lot, but it's good to see it's not in the hundreds like it once was for Web of Shadows. So we got a lot to talk about with this game, which I know a lot of you are excited about, so let's not delay any further. If you're new here and you're into more retro-themed content, consider subscribing. Now, let's unbox this complete in-box copy of Spider-Man Web of Shadows, starting off with the back of the box. A deadly symbiote invasion is devastating New York City, consuming buildings, infecting citizens, and wreaking complete havoc. How far will you go to save New York? Fight on the ground, up walls, and into the air in an all-new fluid combat system. Side with heroes or villains depending on your actions. Switch freely between red suit and black suit, each with their own unique fighting style. And then inside the box, here we have the disc. I mean, this, I could not have asked for a cleaner complete in-box copy when it came to Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I mean, this is beautiful. Even the disc at the bottom, like no marks whatsoever. Whoever was taking care of this, they took good care of it. And then, of course, we've got the manual. Also in pristine condition here. Unfortunately, the manual doesn't have much to offer us. It's black and white. It's got a few controls in here. This is around the era where a lot of game companies were saying, yep, we're moving on from game manuals. We're going to give you in-game tutorials. So with that, that is your complete in-box copy of Web of Shadows. Now, let's talk about this bad boy. This is pretty much what I would consider, in a lot of ways, the direct spiritual successor to Ultimate Spider-Man, another Spider-Man game we spoke about here on the channel, and one that I love dearly. I have a lot of admiration for Ultimate Spider-Man. So coming into Web of Shadows, as someone who's only played it loosely a couple of years after it came out, my expectations are pretty high for this one. The People's Spider-Man, as I call it. Like, everyone loves Web of Shadows. And I can see how this one's a bit of a community favorite because the critic scores weren't super high for this one. There was a lot of criticism for it, certainly, with its draw distance, its texture pop-ins, some of the messy nature of its open world. The mission design isn't that great, but people loved the ideas that were in this game, so much so it overrode that. So let's talk about some of them. As the back of the box said, you can freely switch between the red suit and the black suit in this game. So, in this game, when you press the left stick, you'll go from normal Spidey to Ultimate Spider-Man, and your fighting style will change up. You'll have different combos, different powers available to you, and this will be useful in combat. They define it as a fluid fighting system. It's very reliant on the Y button, which is what you use for your web attacks. And the way they angle the camera when you're flying in for a web strike is really cinematic. I do dig that quite a bit. But the combat system's very over-reliant on this one. Like, you're going to have missions where they're like, this is not a joke. Take out 22 snipers and zip, and zip, and zip, and zip, and zip. And you do it 22 times and they go, wave 2. Take out the next wave of snipers and back around you go. This game, I think, if there's anything I really well and truly love about it, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous from the opening shot. The most famous shot in all of the Spider-Man game universe. Helicopters are crashing, gunshots are going off, and there's Spider-Man anime walking in the middle of all of it. And I went, oh my God, I forgot about this. They opened the game with this moment here. It's incredible. He zips around, he's beating people up, then he's fighting on the streets. They're teaching the game right. Here's how you fight on walls, here's how you fight in the air, here's how you fight on the ground. And then Luke Cage and MJ pull up, and MJ's got a friggin' shotgun, and she's all upset with you. Then you're fighting Venom, then Venom's disappearing, and you're helping MJ to the hospital, and there's gangs pulling up and shooting at each other in front of a hospital. You're like, this city is complete chaos. They need me here. They need me here. If there's anything they do, they sell the chaos of New York City perfectly, because it could not get more messy than this. And I don't know if it's intentional by design, but it's just the first 30 minutes of this game are Spider-Man 3 levels of like ironic comedy, yet being iconic at the same time. It's incredible. This game has a ton of Spider-Man 3 energy. And if you don't know this about me, I don't say it as an insult. Again, it's ironic, it's comedic, but it's also just kind of fun. You're like, I'm learning to love this thing. That's what, in my opinion, Web of Shadows really is. But don't get me wrong, I'm not going to diss the game and disrespect it like that. There's a lot of things, if you're new to Spider-Man Web of Shadows, that are worth respecting, like path choice. This is the defining quality of Web of Shadows, and something I love. I'd love to see more of this in modern Spider-Man games. So for those who don't know, you'll get to certain points in the story where effectively Spider-Man will have a choice, like an RPG kind of choice. And they'll say, okay, are you going the red suit path or are you going the black suit path? You got a choice, make it. And you can really plummet the city into chaos. And spoiler alert, okay, there's a point in this game where you can just kill Wolverine. And I'm just like, yo, what? This is why it sucks so much that these games aren't available on backwards compatibility. Like, I had to put this up in the Xbox 360. Unfortunately, I couldn't sign into my Xbox account because the 360 setup and sign-in system is completely different to how it is now on Xbox One and Series consoles. So you just played this without the achievements, unfortunately. But what's here, I just wish more people could experience it. And with Xbox buying Activision, I'm hoping that maybe they can find a way to bring these back, because they just need to be experienced. In a time where Spider-Man's more loved than ever, they need to bring these back. But anyway, the path choices are really cool because they can get pretty dark. This game, in a lot of ways, to my surprise, is a light RPG. What I mean by that is, as you're beating up bad guys, you're going to get points for your red suit and for your black suit. And as you get those points, you'll spend them on a variety of combat upgrades, different combos, different abilities, different powers, and you can unlock them all whenever. But also, there is kind of like a dialogue system in this game where I'll stop and talk to Luke Cage and be like, hey, tell me a bit about yourself, man. And there's just dialogue for that. And you can take on optional missions. And this is where the game stumbles a little bit, in my opinion. The mission design isn't great. Like, I wasn't kidding about the 22 sniper mission where you're just zip attacking all of them. Then there's also moments like, say, kill 15 enemies this way. You can web swing kick them, and there'll just be a mission based off of that. And then there'll be missions teaching you a number of moves, and they spend so much time doing that it really stops the rhythm of the game, which I think is to help keep it longer, because while it inherits a lot of energy from Ultimate Spider-Man, it also inherits some of its problems. Ultimate Spider-Man, for those who don't remember, you would have to complete open world activities to get to the next point in the main story, because that game was really short. Where same thing here with Web of Shadows. It's not a super long game, and the reason why it's as long as it is because in between these pivotal story moments, you're just going to do a bunch of whatever missions to get there. But this game, I don't know if this technology was used on Prototype, but Prototype was one of my favorite open world games growing up. I remember, I think I was in 6th grade when Prototype came out, and it was during the wars. If you don't remember this on the internet, it was Infamous or Prototype, and I was Team Prototype. Like, I love Infamous, but I was Team Prototype. And I just see a lot of Prototype energy in this game, like the way the symbiotes sound, the battle animations, the New York City itself. Just a lot of it reminds me of Prototype, which is a game I need to talk about here on the channel, by the way. I adore Prototype 1 so much. But anyway, this game gives me a lot of prototype energy. It's just so unique. I think that's, again, why so many people love this game. Web of Shadows is so unique. You have the choice system. You've got this really Spider-Man 3 energy coursing through its veins. You've got prototype vibes in it. Then there's the voice acting, which is... Spider-Man's voice acting is on another level of like, oh my God, did they just take someone from the streets and have him do Spider-Man?
Now where is Cage and his search party? Where is MJ?
I really love it. It's very much a game that is, I think, for a lot of folks hard to love, but if you look past its flaws, there's something pretty unique here under the surface. And again, for me as a ultimate Spider-Man stan, I can't help but adore it. When it comes to web swinging, I got to give this one a shout out because a lot of this game's focus is the combat, but for such a old game, I thought that the web swinging, specifically the web swinging and the web zipping, felt good. Like the web zipping is honestly some of the best you'll find in the Spider-Man games. Like you don't zip too fast and go a mile this way. You zip just short little bursts. And so it made it worse. Sometimes I'd stop web swinging and I just web zip across the rooftops. And I really like that. But overall, the momentum, you could feel it when you're web swinging. And the reason I distinguish that as specifically web swinging, with my emphasis earlier, is because the movement. I wonder how many people who love Web of Shadows have gone back and played it recently. Because this game just controls really poorly. When I was going back to it for this video, I was like, man, as someone who went back to even the Raimi Spider-Man video games and even Shattered Dimensions. Like, I've gone back to so many of these Spider-Man games for this channel, Ultimate Spider-Man. This one just felt really sluggish to control. I mean, the movement, the walking around, the camera controls especially, like, it's not finely tuned at all. That can go straight into the combat, where this was in an era of Spider-Man where they were trying to figure out, how do we keep up the camera with the speed of Spider-Man? How do we make all of that work well together, where you need a lock-on camera? How do we not get it to clip into the wall? And eventually with Insomniac, I think a lot of these problems were solved. But with this iteration here, you could still feel they were trying to figure out what works. So this game expects you to be locking onto enemies often, and it's weird because you'll be locked onto one enemy, mano a mano, but then you'll have like 4 of them surrounding you, and you'll have to kind of fight away from the lock-on target to hit everyone, because that's the best way to keep Spider-Man centered on the action. But overall, yeah, it didn't feel that good to control in my return to it. But when you look at just how dark this game can get and all the cameo appearances and the storyline that's there and the Spider-Man 3 energy, it's a fun, charming game. It's definitely a little bit surprising, though, with how high the price got for it. Because, again, I think, like, to me, the pinnacle of this era of Spider-Man, the Activision Spider-Man games, I'm probably going to give it to Shattered Dimensions. I felt like that was the most comic booky idea. That was the most unique one. It had so much fan service. You had so many cool combos, yet so much awesome exploration, great replayability in a manner of speaking, thanks to its upgrade system. Like, I just feel like there was a lot to love there. But this game is no slouch. I just have a lot more problems with it personally than I expected going back to it. And I thought, even though in these reflection videos we highlight the good, which I think we've done here, I did walk away going, I feel like I'd be misleading the audience too much if I just didn't mention any of the problems with this game. Like, it's an ugly game. You're going to see a lot of pop-in, and that was common during the Xbox 360 days. But I mean, there are some moments where I'm like, oh God, like I'm standing in front of a building and it's just loading in, or oh, the trees are just coming into shape now. This game is another title in the Spider-Man cycle that did suffer, much like one we'll talk about in the future, Etch of Time, that did suffer from the cycle of development that Spider-Man was on, where there was a demand like every 2 years-ish, you should expect a new Spider-Man game. And they just keep flipping assets and flipping assets. Like, I think this game was an asset flip from Prototype, and they keep flipping assets and reusing them over and over and over. And sometimes you'd strike gold, I feel, with Shattered Dimensions. Sometimes you get a Web of Shadows, which had a lot of cool ideas at its heart, but it stumbles a little bit. So I like this game a lot. It was really cool to go back to it. It was a Treyarch Spider-Man game. But there was also stuff that I felt I needed to remind people about with this game. But the story choices, again, are awesome. So what did you think of Spider-Man Web of Shadows? Do you have a adoration for it like many others did in the comment section here on Retro Rebound? Let me know. Am I out of pocket for my takes on this game? Am I crazy for having as many critiques? Because honestly, we're not super critical here on Retro Rebound, so this might be the worst I've ever got. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing your thoughts. And with that, take great care of yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.